Are you confused with level of development? We are as well. So there are all other acronyms, LOD, LOI, LOG, and so many more. And in this video, we are going to define and explain how the new schema actually overcomes those. So we, instead of focusing those standards, or I would say guides indicating different LODs which are not really working, we are going to focus instead level of information need. So this is a lean approach, specifically focus on the client needs and define all the required information for a particular project for a particular client. On top of that, we will discuss critical BIM suggestions, we'll have great BIM advice from our guest, and we will also cover the biggest challenges with BIM. Today's guest is Marzia Bolpagni. She has been working with Mace for the last 3 years and she has a great academic career and she has a PhD in information management. And with the Mace, which is an enterprise that has over 5,500 employees just in LinkedIn, so they do like Shard and London Eye, they do a lot of great projects. She tends to meet a lot of investors and developers and she's on their side, guiding them and advising them as a senior BIM advisor how to implement BIM and how to get proper BIM uses and information requirements for a particular project. There will be a lot to learn from her and there will be a great talk, so keep watching until the end in order to get the most value out of this video. Hi Marzia.
Hi, nice to meet you everyone.
Thank you very much for joining to the meeting and we are really excited. We will share a lot of things today. We will learn LOX, LOD, new European framework for information management and what kind of requirements there are, some BIM advice from Marzia, and a little bit about the Maze and what she has been tackling there, and some critical like BIM implementation suggestions from her, which can really bring a lot of benefit to the entire industry. So how do you feel today?
Great. Really looking forward to that.
Before we move on to the more about what you are doing currently, would you like to explain us a little bit about how was your background, like your history, and how did you arrive to this level?
Yeah, sure. So I started my career as a building engineer in Italy and University of Brescia, and where I started to investigate building information modeling. I did my master thesis in Finland at the Technical Research Center of Finland, and my thesis has been published and is available online to everyone. It was on the use of BIM in the public sector. And after that, I continued my career in academia. I worked in Italy for the National Research Center. And then I started a PhD on the topic, again, of digitalization of the construction sector, and with the focus on information management. And my PhD was with the Politecnico di Milano, and I had the opportunity to work in US, in Boston, with the Massachusetts Port Authority, where they integrate BIM and Lean together, so really important topic. And also to work in UK for the Minister of Justice, where then I met Mace, that is the current company where I work. And and during this year, I've been also working in different organizations for different initiatives as an assistant editor of the BIM Dictionary. I don't know if you know about the BIM Dictionary.
Yes.
is a tool that is available online for free to everyone. Has been translated in 24 languages so far. It's part of the BIM Excellence Initiative. So I really advise everyone to have a look because it's really great. And also in the website of the BIM Excellence Initiative, you can find a lot of material. And also part of as ambassador of the UK BIM Alliance, or an initiative to promote the implementation of BIM in the UK. And I'm also working on standardization, and in particular at European level, on the topic of the level of information.
We'll come to that in a second. We will come to that in a second. But just to understand a little bit, so you have been like involving in a lot of activities just to make public to move towards BIM, because we know that the industry is very traditionalized, but obviously we need movement like this, and that's why you're in this video, by the way. So you want to like make a voice in the industry, so they're really aware of those things. And so they can actually start pushing more and more towards BIM, because it's already like, I would say, past the BIM, because it has been like 30 years over here and the industry has not been getting a lot of benefits from it. So before we just move on to the LOX, the main phase of LOD, and as well as the new UK framework that you have been working for the information management, but we just want to understand a little bit more. What have you been tackling for the last 3 years with Mace?
Yeah, so Mace, for some of you that maybe are not familiar with it, is a construction and consultancy company working at a global scale. So I'm working in London in the Department of Building Information Modeling for Consultancy, and I've been helping clients, in particular public clients, on the implementation of digital strategies. As you maybe know, in the UK, BIM has been mandatory for central government project funded from April 2016. But also working with private clients on different industries such as pharmaceutical, aviation, and transport. So my role is really to understand what they want to get from building information modeling and to help them to get the most. Because we know that the BIM has been implementing in the past year mainly in the design phase and in construction phase, but still there is the need to have intelligent clients able to implement and require the building information modeling in the right way.
Absolutely. So the strategy is everything in the end of the day. So if there's a good strategy at the beginning of the project, everything runs as smoothly as possible. So that's a really good approach. And what I would like to discuss now is LOD, like many phases LOD, because you have spent almost 4 years of your career on that thing and you're developing those information management and those standards. So, and then after that, we will be moving on with some critical suggestions. But just before that, let's discuss the LOX, LOD, the ISO standard for information management, and which is a level of information need, and as well as the new EU framework that you have been working for the information management. Can you explain us a little bit on those stuff?
Yeah, so while I was investigating this topic of building information modeling, I realized that in different countries, we use different terms and different definition to actually speak about the same things, or actually we use a lot of different concepts and so on. So there is a lot of confusion regarding this topic of LOD. And where I ask people, do you like LOD? Actually, they are not really happy. So because we create digital models that are really complex. We use, computational design. We use scripts to create our models. But actually, the way that we specify our requirements is really traditional. So we use these numbering systems. Can be, from 100 to 500, or it can be from 1 to 7, or it can be letters and so on. But there is really a gap between, okay, what does this number means really? Is it clear to everyone? Or does it mean LOD 300 or LOD 350? Usually when I ask expert, if I show an image, say, can you tell me which LOD it is? If there are 10 experts in the room, they came up with 10 different answers. So there is really a need to improve the way that we specify our information requirements. So I published this article on the many phases of LOD in 2016, and that received a really positive answer and feedback, because people realized that actually we needed to do better as an industry. So I consider myself as a critical thinker, and I hope that all of you there are not just people that they follow, but that you understand that we can do things in a better way. So not just because we have been doing the same thing for years, then we need to keep doing that. So the idea is really to find a way to improve the way that we specify information, to be able also from a client point of view, when they receive the information, to be able to check if what they receive is in compliance with what they required. By now, when you receive a model, how can you check if it's LOD 300? Is very complicated. So there is a lot of gray area.
There's also one thing that a lot of people are thinking the LOD came up just for, for entire model. And that's a huge misconception, because LOD was actually for individual components. And for the small projects, I understand that the client or the people doesn't want to really make a lot of input. But when they justify one model that's LOD 300 or 400, it's not really that. If there will be a lot of components which inside that model, that will be LOD 400 maybe, there will be LOD 300 or whatever, like different LODs. So you cannot really define an entire model, and it's really difficult to say, hey, this model is that much, project needs are changing, and everything is like, it has to be for the specifically for that project. And if we think about it, like there is now a new concept. We are stating lean information management. So we are trying to do dedicated information requirements for a particular project rather than dealing with, like you said, LOX, LOD, hundreds of phases. We start to focus more on what do we need really, and then try to boil it down to that specific thing so the client can use those input effectively.
Yeah. So actually in history, mainly in US, they started this concept of LOD focusing on the element level, but in other countries that is also related to the entire model. But the reality is really that is not working. So as I say, we really need to focus on what we need and to have this approach that is more efficient. So what happened is that at international level, with the new international standard on information management, we're dealing with BIM, that is the ISO 19650 series. A new concept has been introduced, that is the level of information need. What does it mean? That we don't speak anymore about LOD, LOI, LOG, and so on, so forget about that. Is a new framework that is linked with the purpose. What does it mean? That you cannot specify your information without saying first what this information is for. So first you need to specify why you need the information, the purpose, because as we know, if we need to create a model for energy analysis, it's quite different from a model for structural analysis or to be used for construction sequences. Absolutely. The geometry is different. The information that we include are different. Some can be more relevant. For example, for energy, you need some attributes, and then instead for the structural analysis, you need others. So imagine a world where you are able to receive the information that you need for the tasks that you need to do. So you don't receive this model full of information that actually you need to spend time in finding information and actually there is not what you really want. So the level of information need is a new framework to help you to get what you want at the right time. So in doing that, first of all, you define why you need the information, because then it will allow you to filter and to be able to get just the information that you need regarding the geometry. Okay, and there are different aspects to define the geometry. Regarding the attributes, so the alphanumerical information, and regarding also the documentation. It is also a key part of the information framework. So, and at the European level, a group of experts from 16 countries has been working in the past years to develop further this concept of level of information need. And a new standard is going to be published. It's called EN 17412. And the first part is on concept and principle. So it will be published by the end of 2020, so this year.
That's really good.
And other parts are going to be published on the application and the data schema.
Wow, that's good. And when are you planning to publish those next bits? In the end of 2021 or later?
It's the standardization process, as you know, is taking more time because you need to agree with the different countries and so on. But hopefully, it will not take too long. Yeah. I cannot promise on a specific time because there are
we
a
have
lot
a dedicated team there, so we have a dedicated team. They can push really well.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's really good because we really need something at the European level. I mean, as a being a Europe, like a union, we still have too much different standardization going on, and every country trying to do something on their own. I'm glad that UK started this initiative and made the push in the BIM. So the world is now following the UK, but we actually have to go at a higher level, like ISO and European level. So at a different level, so all the countries, all the world actually can start following things. So are there any other standards made at the European level for BIM or it's only information management? And then we will be jumping on some critical suggestions for BIM implementation.
Yeah, I mean, the ISO 9650 has been published starting from the UK standards, but I want to mention that also other countries has been working for a lot of years on the implementation of building information modeling, especially in Scandinavian countries, so they have a lot of experience on the implementation. So at European level is coming different countries with different level of implementation to make it then applicable at European level. At European level, at the moment, there are different initiatives on building information modeling. There is work on the open API for the common data environment, really to find the interoperability between different applications, both at the workflow and the solution level. So it's not just the technical implementation, but also the different workflows that we need to establish on the common data environment. We need also work, we have also work at European level on the data templates, so how we can standardize those topics. They're also working on a common template for the BIM execution plan and exchange information requirements. So there is really a lot of work that is going on. But I want to mention that the framework of the level of information need is being created at the international level. So if you are listening and you are not from Europe, it's not that you don't have to apply. Actually, it is an international standard, and so it's there for all of you to use. So the important thing is that, as I say, you cannot ask, I would like LOD 300
That's
for
right.
for these components and so on. You need to say, I would like to create my model just for rendering. I would like to create my model for accessibility analysis. I would like, and then you need to specify why you need the information. And for each of those purposes, then you define how the geometry look like, how the alphanumerical information look like, and how the documentation that you need. And we need to do this in a more digital way, so that it can be machine interpretable, so we can help the creation of the model on one side. So imagine in a world where you receive from the client already the data set that then you need to fill the information. So you don't need to retype again and again the properties and the attributes that you need, but there are already a data set that is coming from the client. Imagine a world where you you set your information requirements with the level of information need, and then you are able to, when you receive a model, to automatically check if it is in compliance with your requirements. So the level of information need, we would like to help us to achieve that.
Absolutely. Click on the link below to get a free account from Plannerly. It's a BIM management software that allows you to do information requirements and set all the geometry and information that is needed for a particular project, and even track and change and evaluate all the process within one single platform. You can also do documentation within that platform. And it is for free of charge. Just click on the link below. By the way, this is a disclaimer that this video is not sponsored by Plannerly. We are only affiliated with them, and we can give you a free link that allows you to get a free account. By the way, if you would like to learn more about this topic, we have a link, pop-up link above, or the link in the description, which we, in collaboration with Marzia, we updated our LOD video. So I strongly encourage you to check that, and that you will be able to build more and dive deeper on what the documents contain and so forth. Let's move on towards the critical BIM implementation, and there will be some BIM advice as well in a second. So what would be your suggestions for critical BIM implementation? What are the, let's say, the 3 things that we need to focus on in order to make a successful BIM implementation in the project?
Yeah. So for me, the first top advice is really to be purpose-driven and to focus on the client needs. We need to stop creating all those models that are full of information, but actually they are not fit for purpose. I think that it's happened maybe to you that you're in construction phase, you receive a model from the designers, you had to remodel from the beginning because what was not fit for purpose. So we needed to create this golden thread of information, so that the information that flow during the entire life cycle, so we're able to use and reuse. So we need to have a sort of sustainable approach and effective approach on how we require the information and then create the information. So to have this approach. So be purpose driven, understand what the clients would like to get from those models. Especially most of the clients, they are interested to link the model to be able to use during operation phase. So which is the strategy, how you're going to help them. The second suggestion is to have an approach always of research and development. We are dealing with a topic that is really linked to innovation. So be always, open to find new ways and to spend time and invest time. So if you have a company, you need your employees free to explore and to test and to always be updating on what is going on. So that is something that I really advise, to have this research and development approach. And the last thing is really work with the people. All this topic is really linked to change management. So how you are able to embed a collaborative culture and a different mindset. So don't focus too much on the technology. Technology is already there. If you want to make it successful, is really to work with the people to create this environment.
Absolutely. I mean, you made a very good point, and I think what you're over here trying to suggest is that rather than using bottom to top approach that we traditionally have been using and is failing, top down approach, what we really need, and we boil down exactly what from where to start, because we are just starting like traditional way, like architect just starts drawing some concept without knowing how much it will cost really to him, and all the other design decisions and operation things and everything. He's just throwing out some concept, and everyone is trying to work around that concept, which is like a bit of challenging at times, because most of the time, as you know, the budgets go over because the design wasn't allocated and worked together with the budget and all the other things in mind. So we are trying to do the same thing with the BIM, unfortunately, and it's like we are trying to just start modeling things, and then suddenly we say, oh, okay, we cannot use this model. But like you said, if we start from top down, we say that's what we need, and we boil down, and this is the path we can go in order to reach that level, and then that will be really helpful for the entire industry. So what BIM advice you can give to the public so industry can say, yes, actually that's a very good idea, and that is the future, that's how we have to do, that's what we have to follow. And not exactly for the implementation, for general to the public, to the general audience.
Yeah, for me, it's really to start with the end in mind. So what you want to get, because we focus too much on the implementation and we start immediately to model, but actually why we are creating those models. So if we want really to spend our money and our time in an effective way, we need to have a strategy in place. So actually is what I do in my daily work, is to help clients and companies to set a strategy. Also, imagine there is also a cost to maintain also those models. What happened after the construction phase? Who is going into those models updating during the life cycle? You need to have a strategy to make sense of your, return on investment of the implementation of BIM. So my advice is really to start with the end in mind and to have this lean approach on the implementation of any sort of methodology, and in particular building information modeling.
What was the biggest challenges you have been facing during this period? Like when you're trying to implement or trying to build a strategy, the challenges that you are facing with, I believe they're interesting. So maybe we can discuss a little bit about that.
No, thank you. It's an interesting question. So I think that we don't have to speak about Hollywood BIM and say that everything is perfect, because actually we are not really learning one from each other. So I prefer really to be honest, and I think that this kind of question really help. So the main challenges are related with explaining what it is about, and for some people also to even imagine, because maybe from some of you that you are listening, you are already expert, and for you everything is clear. But maybe for the other people that you needed to present this, they don't have even idea about the possibility that now, today, we can achieve. So it's really about explaining them what is possible, and at the same times the boundaries and what is already there and what instead the industry needs still to work in order to achieve the optimum implementation. Also, for example, interoperability within different solution, and I understand that it's not one tool, it's not about one solution, but it's really about an ecosystem of different applications. For example, is you need to have change management, so you need to implement a culture within your organization. You need to set the policies and the processes.
Yeah, the mindset is the most difficult part. There was one saying, it's BIM is 10% technology and 90% sociology. So it's more about the people and how we are really managing and trying to use the plain language questions and drive them the right thing. And that's why we did this channel. So hit the subscribe icon below and you can just get the best value for free. It's publicly available. And we want to make sure that everyone can reach this information because like Marzia said, BIM is not for experts only. It's for all. It's for everyone. And I want to ask you one interesting question here. So what was the biggest failure you faced within your career? Like when you were trying to implement maybe something, it didn't work out. Maybe it was so challenging that you didn't manage to accomplish. We are all human in the end of the day. So these things happen and we learn from them.
Yeah, so this is an interesting question. As I say, speaking about failures is part of the journey. It's not always that you get right first time. I think that especially when you work on standardization, there are a lot of different initiatives that you need to coordinate to take into account. So it's really important to have these working not just to implement your own standard and to work together with the expert, but at the same time to connect with what the others are doing. So it happens that even if you try hard to collaborate with others, there are people that they are just interested to go ahead alone and to going in their direction without listening to the others. So that is maybe has been really challenging, and even if you do try hard, there are people that are just interested to follow their path. So it's a lot of work that you need to do in order to engage with people and understand their needs. I learned that it's not just about developing what you believe that is right, but you need to spend time in work with the others and to make it and also align with others things that are happening in the industry. But this is part of the lesson learned. So, for example, with the work on the level of information need, you will find in Annex A a detailed work that we did in order to align our work with existing standards. So to build on the top of what is already available and not to create something that is completely new. So hopefully that will be useful. So if you have any question regarding this topic on the level of information need, feel free to get in touch. Also in the UK, there are, if you work on the UK market or if you are interested, there are the guidelines on the ISO 9650 implementation, and where I also publish a part on the level of information need. And also there is a database available, is an example of how you can implement the level of information need in a machine interpretable way. So I suggest you to have a look.
There are some AI things. This really sounds interesting. And what I would like to say to the audience is that hit the comment icon below. So to comment, and if you have any particular questions to the Marzia, just ask them right away, and we'll try to get the reply as soon as possible to you. And hopefully she will be also visiting us one more time when the standard is published for the European level, so we can give a right message to the audience. But if you have interesting questions down below, and there are a couple of interesting questions, we might even cover them in the next video. So we'll have a lot of BIM talks, and we want to give the right message to the industry. And that's one of the great things, because you generally get this kind of talks from the seminars only. That's why we are meeting with industry professionals like experts like Marzia and other professionals in order to make the right talks, the right discussions, so you get the right information in order to move forward with BIM. Previously, we did an LOD video, which you can see over here, but we are now in collaboration with the Marzia doing an updated version of it. So you can click on this video in order to watch that, and we highly encourage you to do so because we are going more in depth and covering all the necessary things and the frameworks you should be able to use by the end of this year. And feel free to check the outdated video because it will give you an idea and a comparison what has been outdated and what has been changed so far.